Hello and welcome back to Fire to Fork. It's a hot day, got a bit of a sore neck, so a little bit of neck oil should sort me out. Now, today's episode is going to be a little bit different. That's because I'll be doing the talking. Future Harry here. Past Harry delegated this job to me. So, today we're going to be cooking Boerewors and Chakalaka. If you don't know what that means, just sit tight, I'll explain it in a minute. First things first, light a fire. So what we've got is a little bit of fat wood and a little bit of Zippo tinder. Now, the tinder and the fat wood both have quite a high oil content, so you will notice they smoke a little bit initially, but they burn for ages, and they are all natural, which is quite nice. Over the next few weeks, I'm going to be mixing it up with different fire techniques. This is a really basic hash sort of pattern, and that's a very good one to let lots of airflow through. You'll notice I'm not even using small logs. They're just roughly cut bigger logs, and that's because the fat wood and stuff burns for so long that I don't need to bother with all the small stuff. Next, instead of getting your good quality spun steel camp oven, grab the cast iron one that you borrowed from your neighbour a year ago to do a cast iron versus spun steel video and you forgot to give back. And into that camp oven, what you want to do is just dice up some onions and drop them in with a little bit of some sort of a flavourless oil. So I'm using rice bran oil in this case. Next up, chop a few bits of garlic. I think I've got about 4 cloves there, diced up nice and fine, and add them to the breadboard, not to the pot. If you chuck them in the pot, they will burn because onion takes longer to cook than garlic. Chuck your mate's camp oven on the fire, give it a little bit of a stir around, and we're just going to brown those onions very slightly. Push your garlic off to the side, and we're going to get cracking with the other veggies. Start off cutting up a couple of capsicums or peppers, depending on where you're from. I've gone for 2 different colours because I want this thing to look like a kaleidoscope. After about 2 minutes on the heat, the onion should start to smell like cooked onion. So just drop in your garlic, give it a bit of a stir, and then crack on with the rest of your veggies. And most importantly, yell at your wife to bring you the things you forgot. Sam, could you please bring me a carrot? Thanks. And then turn that big bit of carrot into small bits of carrot. While you're doing this, make sure you keep stirring your pot and make sure stuff doesn't stick to the bottom. So we just want to slightly brown that before we add all the other veggies. Thank my wife for the aforementioned carrot. Actually, no, that's weird. You shouldn't be thanking my wife. Anyway, once again, make big pieces of vegetable into small pieces of vegetable, and then we're just going to add it all into the pot. Now it's time to make this vegetable kaleidoscope interesting. So, 2 teaspoons of curry powder, 1 teaspoon of oregano, 1 teaspoon of paprika, 3 tablespoons of Nando's peri-peri sauce. This adds a really nice flavour. Use whatever heat you want. I just happen to have medium in the fridge. I don't really know why there was medium in my house, but anyway. 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, a little bit of salt and pepper, 1/4 cup of water, 1 teaspoon of thyme leaves. Don't use the stalks like I did, I'm a moron, they come out later on and they're chewy. And 2 bay leaves. You can use dried, but if you have an overachieving bay tray like me, use fresh. Give it a good stir up, then add in a 400 gram tin of tomatoes, or you can use fresh if you like. Then the easy bit, sit back for about 10 minutes, delete a couple of beers out of your fridge, and stir it every 2 minutes. Now this next step might seem a little bit weird, but just bear with me on this. Next step is add 250 grams of baked beans, so either 1 small tin or a bit over half a tin of normal baked beans. They add a really, really nice sweetness and flavour and texture, and chakalaka is not the same without a good old-fashioned tin of baked beans. Now the beans don't actually need to be cooked, they just need to be warmed through, so we're just going to stir them in, leave them for a couple of minutes, and that is 1 pot of chakalaka ready to go. Let's get on to the bori. Now for the Boerewors, or as most Australians know it, Boerewors, the unpronounceable South African sausage. The only reason I can pronounce it is because my dad is Zimbabwean, so to all those South Africans out there, don't worry, I am going to be precious with this meal. I do consider it part of me growing up as well, and I am also aware that burning Boerewors or cooking Boerewors too hot is a capital offence in South Africa, so I'm going to be very careful here because I don't want online death. The first step to cooking Boerewors properly is to adjust your fire so that it's nice and even, not too much smoke, and you should be using either a good quality lump charcoal or hardwood. Hardwood is definitely preferable. In this case, I'm using Western Australian Jarrah. Redwood or something would be great as well. You'll notice that I've adjusted my braai to the highest setting, and the thing I'm calling a braai is the fire pit thing that's smoking at us. That is a braai. Osbraai is the brand that makes it. That's called the compact braai. The little fire grill grate thing that I'm about to put the Boerewors in, that is a grid. It's a braai grid, but it's a grid to go over a braai, just so we're clear. So a braai is essentially a wood-powered barbecue. They're very popular in South Africa. In fact, I would say most people in South Africa would have a wood-powered grill as opposed to a gas-powered grill. The height of that grill is actually really important in this case. You don't cook Boerewors quickly. You don't cook it like a normal sausage. You cook it slowly, and it's got a very high fat content, and basically you want to render that fat out. It shouldn't be lumpy, it shouldn't be charcoaly, it should be slow cooked. I'm going to cook this for about probably 15 to 20 minutes on the lowest heat possible. During this slow cooking process, we are not looking for something that looks like your average sausage. We're not looking for a nice brown crisp all over it. That comes later. What we're trying to do here is nice and slowly render the fat. Then you'll see here that my fire has basically run out of steam, and I let it do that. That's totally fine. So what we're going to do, get the air compressor onto it. Obviously you can use a blower or whatever you've got. Give it tons and tons and tons of heat, and we do our final sear. This is to make it look sexy, give it a little bit of crisp on the outside, and basically make that skin pierce a little bit easier. We're only going to do this for a couple of minutes, or for actually a handful of seconds really. And I'm also going to toast my roll on top because, well, who doesn't like a toasted roll? And that's essentially it for the cooking process. It's very simple, very straightforward, the actual cooking of a Boerewors, but if you overcook it, it will be really, really dry and quite horrible. Now the only thing left to do, plate it up, gratuitous B-roll, and try the bloody thing. Quite hot because I did my gratuitous B-roll on the briar and the cold bit. Still, should be fine. That's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. As a South African, I mean, look, I'm sure there'll be South Africans that are annoyed at some sort of the technique, some part of the technique that I've done, but I'm happy with it. I reckon my family would be happy with it, and I reckon I could serve this up at most barbecues in Johannesburg where I live, and they'd be happy with it too. I'm gonna, one of the best things I've ever eaten with a beer. It does go with beer. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what you thought of this new format. These are the videos I've always wanted to make. I've always wanted to do this style, so I hope you like it. Cheers. And in next week's episode, don't worry, we're back in the bush. Can't wait. See you then. Baked beans are key. Oh, absolutely key.